You are an empath too, we all are, but I am aware of this skill, and since early childhood, I've learned to see and feel emotions as distinct entities, each with its own voice, character, purpose, and use. The emotions are as real, as distinct to me as colors and shades are as to a painter. Empathetic skills aren't unusual. They are normal human attributes present in each of us. They are our nonverbal communication skills. Through empathy, we can hear the meaning behind words, decipher the postures people unconsciously adopt, and understand the emotional states of others. The ability to empathize is now thought to reside in special brain cells called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons were first in the premotor cortex of the macaque monkey in the 1990s, but they were soon discovered in humans as well. Mirror neurons have become an exciting area of research because they help scientists understand how socializing information is transmitted between primates. Empathy makes us sensitive and intuitive, but it is a double-edged sword. Empaths can get right to the center of any issue. They often feel what other people refuse to acknowledge, but in a culture that can't figure out what emotions are, let alone how to deal with them, strong empathy is a difficult skill to possess. Empaths certainly feel the emotions that are all around us, but awareness of the healing capacities inside those emotions is rare. This is unfortunate because it is our emotional sensitivity and agility, our empathy, that helps us move forward, understand deeply, and connect with ourselves, other people, our vision, and our purpose. In fact, research by neurologist Antonio Damasio has shown that when the emotional brain centers are disconnected from the rational processing centers through surgery or brain damage, patients are unable to make decisions and in some cases are unable to understand other people. Verbal skills and pure rationality may be what makes us so smart, but it is our emotions and our empathy that makes us brilliant, decisive, and compassionate human beings. Though empathy is a normal human ability, most of us learn to shut it or dampen it off as we acquire verbal language. Most of us learn by the age of 4 or 5 to hide, squelch, or camouflage our emotions in social situations. We catch on very quickly to the fact that most people are inauthentic with one another, that they lie about their feelings, leave important words unsaid, and trample unheedingly over each other's obvious emotional cues. Learning to speak is often a process of learning not to speak the truth and attaining an uncanny level of pretense in most relationships. Every culture and subculture has a different set of unspoken rules about emotions, but all of them require that specific emotions be camouflaged, overused, or ignored. Most children, empaths one and all, eventually learn to shut down their empathetic abilities in order to pilot their way through the social world. In my life, a serious trauma occurred at the age of 3 that interfered with my ability to shut down my empathetic abilities. I was repeatedly molested at that age, and along with a myriad other insults to my psyche, I missed the transition into speech as a central communication device. I separated myself from human culture to the extent that I could, and as a result, I did not join in with the emotional socialization that my peers received. Those of us who don't shut down our empathetic skills remain awake, often painfully so, to the undercurrents of emotion all around us. This has been my experience. My search for emotional understanding has been guided and pushed by my position as an empath. Throughout my life, I have searched for information about emotions as specific entities and precise messages from the instinctual self. But what I've found is that emotions are given very little respect. Much of the information we have about emotions tells us to stop the natural flow of the emotions or place them into simplistic categories. These emotions are good and those emotions are bad, all of which mirror that early socialization we receive on which emotions are right, wrong, acceptable, and unacceptable. I searched diligently, but there didn't seem to be an approach to emotions that explained them in enlightened or useful ways. In my teens, my search led me towards spirituality, metaphysics, and energetic healing. In these ideologies, I found some useful tools to help me manage my empathetic skills, but still no functional understanding of the emotions. In my spiritualist or metaphysical beliefs, the body and its ills, the world and its upheavals, the mind and its opinions, and the emotions and their pointed needs are treated as stumbling blocks to be overcome or as interruptions to be transcended. There is a sad rejection of the richness inherent in all the faculties and all of our aspects, and I've noticed a fragmentation in most metaphysical teachings. I took what assistance I could from those teachings, but in regard to the emotions, there was very little I could use. For example, healthy anger acts as honorable sentry or boundary holder of the psyche, but most information about anger focuses on the unhealthy expressive states of rage and fury, or the repressive states of resentment, apathy, and depression. Sadness offers life-giving fluidity and rejuvenation, but very few people welcome sadness. Most people barely tolerate it. Furthermore, depression isn't a single emotion, but a strangely ingenious constellation of factors that erect a vital stop sign in the psyche. Healthy and properly focused fear is our intuition. Without which we would be endangered at all times. But this goes directly against accepted beliefs about fear. I also see quite clearly that happiness and joy can become dangerous if they are trumpeted as the emotions of choice, as the only emotions any of us should ever feel. I've seen so many people whose lives imploded after they disallowed the protection of anger, the intuition of fear, the rejuvenation of sadness, and the ingenuity of depression in order to feel only joy. In short, throughout my life, I've found that what we're taught about emotions is not only wrong, it's often dead wrong. Because I've missed that important early passage of turning off my pre-verbal empathetic skills in deference to the verbal skills of emotional subterfuge, I could not afford to listen to those dangerous ideas. I was surrounded by currents of emotion in every moment, and as such, I knew that our accepted beliefs about emotions were nonsensical. I used my anger to separate myself from the cultural conditioning we all receive about emotions because I knew I couldn't survive or flourish within those conditions. I knew I'd have to find my own way. I also knew I couldn't simply study the emotions intellectually, historically, or psychologically, but that a full-bodied level of research from the heart, mind, body, and soul had to be brought to bear on a topic as full-bodied as the emotions. I knew I'd have to become a genius, not math or physics or anything normally associated with genius, but an emotional genius. If I was going to survive as an empath in our mostly non-empathetic culture. This book is a result of my lifelong search for a deep and functional understanding of the emotions. Its information and skill set comes not from any particular culture or teaching, but directly from the realm of the emotions themselves. Certainly, I've studied everything I could get my hands on, but I also did something unusual. Instead of forcing my language upon the emotions, I listened closely to the emotions and engaged them in empathetic dialogue. This form of dialogue is not difficult, it's just unusual. Empathetic skills allow us to see the world as alive with knowledge and meaning. They help us listen to the meaning underneath the words, to understand living things and nature, and to connect emotively with the world around us. Listening to an instrumental piece of music and letting it tell you a story, that's an empathetic dialogue. We all know how to do it. I just do it with unusual things like the emotions themselves. Dialoguing with emotions is not a process which you name emotions as if they were street signs or manage them as if they were symptoms of a disease. This dialogue allows you to dive into all of your emotions in order to understand them at their own deep and primal level. It helps you remove the perceived disability of having emotions, while it allows you to see your emotions in new and meaningful ways. In short, if you can empathetically communicate with your emotions as the specific and brilliant messengers they are, you'll have the energy and information you need to create a meaningful and conscious life. Though we've all been trained to categorize and deny our emotions and ignore our empathy, they do not ever go away. They're always available to us. I've found that if we can just pay attention, each of us can access our own empathetic skills and access the brilliant information inside each emotion. How to read this book. This book is laid out in an empathetic way, which means that we begin with an exploration of trouble and difficulty, always knowing that the emotions will help us find our way out of the trouble. When we look at things empathetically, we drop down underneath the obvious, behind the merely rational, and beneath the surface of what seems to be going on. As we learn to listen to our emotions, this empathetic approach is absolutely vital because we've all been socialized to use our emotions in ways that make other people feel comfortable. However, we haven't learned to use emotions in ways that work. The chapters in part 1 drop us down step by step into the trouble we've created by treating the emotions as problems. In these early chapters, we work as healthy emotions do. We name the problem, we drop down to its foundation, we find the brilliance in the problem, and then we come back up to the everyday world with more information, more depth, and more skill. In part 2, each emotion has its own chapter, message, and practice. But you see that part 2 continually refers you back to the information in part 1, to chapters on proper judgment, the 5 elements, and the seven intelligences, distractions, and addictions, and how trauma affects our ability to interpret emotions skillfully. The language and the wisdom of emotions live inside you, but there's a little bit of empathetic work to do before you can get underneath the socialization that has separated you from them.